Hey guys, welcome to the shop. Today's video, we're covering one of my more recent builds. This will be about a month and a half old by the time it posts. But this is a custom Zastava M76. I did a custom barrel for the customer in 30-06. And in my opinion, I think this was a relative achievement getting it to run reliably. I only have about 25 rounds through it, but I have 25 rounds through it with soft point ammunition that is longer and a completely different case profile than what it was originally designed to feed. So I'm thrilled with that. It did require fairly extensive modification to the bullet guide. I actually had to build up the bottom with braze to have the bullet guide sit up higher, and then I had to effectively I had to grind a feed ramp into the bullet guide. But this is a 30-06. This cartridge on the left is the 8x57 it was originally designed for. You see how the 30-06 has much more cartridge taper, and the shoulder's in a different location. So again, more taper, shoulders in a different location. So you need a different interaction with the bullet guide to feed this cartridge than you would with this. What was happening is the cartridges were smashing low into the bottom of the chamber, pretty much exactly on the center line of the bullet. So what worked out actually was about, I want to say 3/64ths of an inch of braze total on the bottom of the bullet guide. I actually had to remove and reinstall it multiple times to get the geometry quite right. But that's not really unheard of in these situations. This is a truly custom firearm where this is non-standard. I'm not aware. The only people I'm aware of doing the same thing is Assault Weapons of Ohio, and theirs are notorious for not running. I don't mean to brag, guys, but I am very proud that I was able to get this to run not just with 30-06, but with 30-06 soft points. Now, the overall length on this is just shy of 46.5 inches. I put my business card in there for scale so we can get an idea of really what we're dealing with. Now, I have it on a much lower table than usual, just so that you guys can get a full view of it. Now, I'm going to field strip the firearm, and we'll talk about some of the mechanics and some of the unique features of Yugoslav guns. We're not going to do any live fire with it. I've done my test firing, and I think that would be a little bit disrespectful to the customer for me to effectively shoot his firearm for fun. Now, the rail on this, the scope rail on it is fairly tight. I don't know how normal that is, but it does require some mild persuasion. The firearm is unloaded. So this is easier if you just grab the scope. Now, I know that's kind of harsh. I don't think we're going to damage anything. What I believe is happening is that the cam in here is sticking and just needs some penetrating oil on it. The throw on these for the scope lock cam is actually much shorter than it is. It's a finer thread with more clamping force than it is on the PSO scopes, from what I can tell. Now, this is the buffer I discussed. What's happening is when you get to the rear of travel past this point, the recoil spring assembly is kicking the front of the bolt downwards, which is unfortunate. I don't think I need to demonstrate that without the buffer, but it's why these buffers have a reputation as just being a band-aid effectively for improperly assembled guns. Now, this is not something I'm at all surprised by, frankly, because this firearm is in an aftermarket receiver. It's not a original Yugoslav one. It's made in the United States by a company called Totort. It is a nice receiver. I think the machining on it is very good. But this is a very large bolt and bolt carrier by AK standards. Now, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the platform, this is a really nice trick on the rear sight when it's tight is this stamping thickness here is very close to what is in the rails on the bolt carrier group. Now, one unique feature of the Yugoslav guns is we have a 3-position three-position gas port. Now, I gasped this gun to run correctly in the number 1 position, which is the smallest, where number 2 is dirty or cold conditions, and number 3 is dirty cold conditions. So this firearm has also been blued. I did the bluing and polishing here. I'm pretty thrilled with it. This is just an interesting gun. I don't foresee seeing another one of these for a long time. The Zastava M76s, there's not a lot of these in the country, and there's not a lot of these parts kits in the country. I was actually really surprised when this guy reached out to me for this job. I'm thrilled I did it. It was very frustrating. We had a lot of issues with it. Getting the barrel to fit was a lot more machine time than I had expected. I'm glad I estimated this job high. And one of the quirks to the Yugo guns is the off-the-shelf AKM safeties don't really fit that well. So I did have to modify the trigger and the safety for that to function. And with projects like this, there's just a lot of little things that add up into making them tougher projects than they originally should have been. But it's really, really interesting how well this turned out. It's a very pleasant gun to shoot. It's not overgassed. I fling cases about 10.5 feet. That's, in my opinion, just right for an AK. I may suggest to the customer that he consider installing a K&S gas piston, which can be special ordered in the right length. But these are just they're unique, they're interesting guns. You don't see a lot of them, and I have high hopes for accuracy. Now, I generally don't accuracy test these firearms for customers because I think there's too many variables, and I have run into a situation where I accuracy tested a firearm. I did very well with it, and the customer had very poor results. It turned out to be ammunition. So I prefer not making representations on accuracy. I would expect, in all honesty, with this gun, about 2-inch groups at 100 yards, depending on ammunition. I think it'll actually do better with full metal jacket than it will with soft points or open tip match, because you mangle the bullet noses on feeding. Now, that is an issue with a lot of semi-automatic firearms, but the AKs are fairly violent in their cycling, so I would expect this to have more issues than most with soft point, which is again why I made sure to get it to function with soft points here should this customer decide to go hunting with it. Now, in his state of residence, I'm not sure the legalities of non-expanding ammunition. However, in my state, you have to hunt with expanding ammunition. It's not up for debate. That is the letter of the law. So, I wanted to make sure that even though I believe this to be a target rifle, we have that option. Now, he did, there's also other quirky things with this. Like, I had to file the ejector a little bit because the bolt was hanging up on it for smooth function. And I will probably suggest to him that he never, ever, ever dry fire this without the bolt in place. Because unlike most AKs, which have a center support rivet here, the milled guns do not. So instead of smacking the center support rivet, you smack the ejector. So that is concerning. And also, I'll probably recommend to him that he buff or polish the hammer. I would expect some peening on the bolt carrier. One unique issues with the removal of the auto sear on semi-automatic AKs is the hammer actually sits up higher than it would with the auto sear in place. So that does cause some rough functioning. It's not noticeable when shooting, just when hand cycling. There's a lot of fairly unique quirks like that when you get into these guns. Now, I have not figured a graceful way to get this silly little rubber buffer in. I do think it's a bit thicker than it needs to be. I bought what was represented to me as the low profile one, so I imagine the even thicker ones are absurd. This could be about half the thickness it is to achieve the goals and objectives I used it for. So with these new guns too, I like building them this way with relatively tight dust covers. I find the tight dust covers don't shoot gas in your eye quite so badly. That is one irritation I have with AKs. That's annoying. I'm gonna have to clean off some dirt on the barrel. It's with the relatively polished bluing on this, any dirt or fingerprints show up and look terrible. I think it is one of the reasons we see a switch to matte bluing more in the US. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this project interesting. I don't know how many more things like this I'll do in the future. Stuff like this, you just don't get that many calls for. There's not a lot of people who want firearms like this custom to this degree. And with the trouble I've had, I think that going forward, it's probably a good idea with at least the M76s to stick with 8x57. I think they will be more reliable and much easier to work with relative to modifying these to feed a cartridge they're not originally designed for. Thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully this inspires some of you to go out, have some fun, build your own project firearms.